down. Let's go. Up. Hey. Uh-huh. Hey, hey. Nice. Knee up. Nice. Hey, come on, knee up. Hand step. Back.
The other leg, same. Your toes facing up. Shika vidole, the mguu, then pull. Pull na ndani kidogo. Very nice stretch for the hamstring. You good? Perfect. Shika hapa nyuma. Let's start here. Good. Hapo. Just hold it for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Perfect. Change the other side. Same count. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Shrug your shoulders there. Front, shrug them backwards. Twist your neck round. Sifunge macho. The other side. Good. Your hands hapo. Legeza mikono tu hapo. Next week Monday tunaanza na wewe on Monday. I hope you're ready. You know how we go. We do it hard. We push it hard. Body weight. So thank you so much for staying tuned to NTV. Hope you have enjoyed the Zumba session today. See you tomorrow with Eve. Then next week Monday, let's push it hard. Have yourself a good day. Bye-bye.
Huyo jamaa unaangalia hapo unamdespise ati hana form. Hey, shida. Mungu halali, kuna day utapatana na yeye ameomoka mbaya. Gari ni ile nono na life inamwendea fiti na wewe umechapa mako. Do hivi, jisort na umorio, mjenge life, usije ukaregret maze.
To get Jisort na Morio by Vuma, dial *811*930#. Skiza na Nation.
Story time.
Long time ago, no animals had legs, and only human beings had legs because Makoro had given them.
Everybody sit down.
All the animals were sad and worried.
Sit down quietly.
Bam! The other chickens laughed out loud. Ha ha ha!
Listen carefully.
Join us every Monday at 8 p.m. with Grace Ekirapa on the Nighttime Tales.
It's story time.
It's one platform where everybody has a voice.
If we don't have jobs, if we don't have money,
it will be a
if we're not, if our business.
Hosted by the King of Wit.
Do you know the Bible to that much detail? Ama hizi ni zile tu zinaendanishana na dhambi zenye unajua.
It's basically everybody's show.
Vitamin C ni cassava, shauri ya nguvu. Vitamin D ni dania. Na chakula anaimba. I have decided.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. King Ori and the Guesswork CEO, Kenya Jui.
The Kisumu County Assembly specializes in stimulants, to be specific, concentrated coffee.
Where humor meets sense.
Moses Kuri alinitwanga hapa serious.
Soldiers wanakuanga wameka polisi kids. Mbona nyinyi mkimbiangi mkituona?
The Wicked Edition. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Only on NTV. This is NTV.
Good morning and a warm welcome to your world this Thursday, the 22nd of October. My name is Joseph Warungu, and one of the biggest challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic season has been the high number of teenage pregnancies that have been recorded in Kenya. So today we cast the spotlight on the issue of contraceptives. And coming up, we get to the bottom of contraceptives. How important are they? How safe are they? Who should be using them and when? When the pandemic struck, and among the forgotten medical needs have been reproductive health services and products such as contraceptives, we talk about the impact of their absence. The cost of making rubber for condoms has gone up during the pandemic. How does this impact you? A Dutch startup creates the world's first living coffin from mushrooms that will help to decompose bodies faster and enrich nature instead of polluting it. And this morning, we're asking, what is your view on contraceptives? Do you use any form of contraceptives? Why or why not? Send us your comments, your views, or indeed your questions via our hashtag #NewNormal. But first, let's have a look at the global numbers as far as COVID-19 is concerned. Starting globally, 41,484,625 people have so far been confirmed positive for COVID-19 around the world, and of these, 30,910,869 have so far recovered, while sadly, around the world, we've lost 1,136,335 people. And coming closer to the African continent, starting with South Africa, 708,359 people have been confirmed positive for COVID-19, and out of this, 641,706 have so far recovered, while in South Africa, as at this moment, 18,741 have sadly passed on as a result of the disease. In our region, starting with our own country, Kenya, 46,144 people so far confirmed positive for COVID-19. Out of this, 32,760 have recovered, while in this country, 858 people have sadly passed on due to COVID-19. Across our other East African neighbors to Uganda, 10,933 people confirmed positive. Out of this, 7,154 have so far recovered, and in Uganda, as we speak, 98 people have so far sadly passed on as a result of the disease. Moving on to Somalia, 3,890 people so far confirmed positive for COVID-19. 3,166 have so far recovered, and in Somalia, so far 1,101 people have so far passed on as a result of COVID-19. Finally, to Rwanda, 5,012 people confirmed positive for COVID-19. Out of these, 4,798 have so far recovered. And in Rwanda, as I speak, 34 people have so far passed on as a result of the disease since they started recording their numbers in March. Now, just before we get into the subject of our discussion this morning, let's have a look at some of the other stories we have for you this morning. Now, over the past 6 months, the lakes of Kenya's Rift Valley have risen to levels not seen in at least half a century. This follows one of the wettest periods in East Africa in living memory. Above average temperatures in the Indian Ocean have caused consecutive years of extreme and erratic rainfall, resulting in frequent and unusual showers on the slopes and rivers that feed the lakes.
Richard Lekutero has lived on the shores of Kenya's Lake Baringo for over 60 years. But less than 6 months ago, he had to move his whole family when his house disappeared under the waters. The Rift Valley lakes have recently experienced an unprecedented rise in water levels.
It's very shocking to see the speed at which the water rises, for me but also for our whole community. I can only compare it to the speed of the wind. The water fills the lake very quickly and goes down very slowly.
Thousands of people have been affected. Families have lost land, homes, and jobs. The Rift Valley lakes rise with the rainy season every year, but 2020 caught everyone by surprise. Lakes Naivasha, Nakuru, Warungu, and Bogoria have all gone up by several meters.
This photograph was taken in 1998, and the water has risen from this point, and it is now up to this point.
Murray Roberts has lived here for 70 years. His family used to run a hotel which is now completely underwater. He also can't recall ever seeing the waters so high.
I think global warming plays a big part in it, as does deforestation. So what's happening is that in the hills where you've had the big forest areas are being cleared, either for farming or whatever, you're now getting more of a flash flood system building up. So when it's raining, it's not being held back by the forest.
Further south, the levels at the popular tourist destination of Lake Naivasha broke a previous record from 60 years ago. The government says waters rose by 2.7 meters between April and June of this year. Residents here rely on tourism and flower farming for a living. The deluge only worsens their existing problems.
Naivasha residents have experienced two tragedies. One is the COVID-19, and as we try to cope and try and control COVID-19, the lake levels have risen again. And the flower farms have laid a few of their employees because of COVID-19.
These layoffs have led to an upsurge in illegal fishing in lakes Naivasha and Nakuru. In addition, the number of hippos in the lakes has gone up, increasing the risk of conflict with humans. All the while, the waters keep coming, with seasonal rains threatening further disruption and strife.
Burundi's ex-president Pierre Buyoya has been sentenced to life in prison in absentia of the assassination of his successor in 1993, according to a court ruling seen by the AFP news agency. Buyoya was on Monday convicted of an attack against the head of state over his role in the killing of the first democratically elected president Melchior Ndadaye during a coup d'etat which plunged the country into civil war. Aside from Buyoya, 18 high-ranking military officials and civilians who were close to him received the same sentence, and another 3 people were sentenced to 20 years in jail for complicity in the crimes. And a former Prime Minister, Antoine Duayo, was acquitted. Only 5 of the accused were present, and the rest were sentenced in absentia. One of the accused that said their lawyers had not been informed the ruling was to take place. Presidential elections in Guinea were held last Sunday without major incident, according to regional observers from the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Tensions remained high in Guinea on Tuesday after a night of unrest sparked by an opposition claim to victory in an election against President Alpha Conde, who is seeking a controversial third term. The West African state's main opposition leader, Cellou Diallo, announced Monday that he had won the hotly contested October 18th poll, without waiting for the official results. I invite all my fellow citizens who love peace and justice to defend this democratic victory, he had declared. But Conde's camp rejected the self-proclaimed win, and joyous celebrations from opposition supporters in the capital Conakry quickly descended into violent clashes with security forces. React to President Donald Trump's announcement that he is ready to remove Sudan from a U.S. blacklist of state sponsors of terrorism. Trump said that Sudan, which has sought the delisting for years, had agreed to a $335 million compensation package for victims and relatives of past attacks. President Trump said Monday he was ready to remove Sudan from a U.S. blacklist of state sponsors of terrorism, a landmark boost for the civilian-backed government as it turns the page on the nation's decades as an international pariah. At long last, justice for the American people and a big step for Sudan, Trump wrote on Twitter, vowing to delist Sudan as soon as the compensation is deposited. Sudan is one of the 4 nations branded by Washington as a state sponsor of terrorism, along with Iran, North Korea, and Syria, severely impeding economic development, with few major foreign investors willing to run afoul of U.S. laws. The World Food Programme Executive Director David Beasley warns that the Nobel Peace Prize recipient organization is in critical need of international aid as the WFP will run out of money for Burkina Faso in November and for Mali in January.
300,000 people we were feeding per month just a year ago. Now 1.2 million just in Burkina Faso. 300,000 people that were in severe food insecurity now is multiples of over 3 million people. And it's only getting worse. We must come together. And that, in my opinion, the Nobel Peace Prize, is not about the World Food Program only. It's about all of us. And I think the Nobel Peace Prize Committee was sending a message to the world that, yes, we're grateful for the work of the men and women at the World Food Program, their partners that lay their lives on the line every day. We've got a lot of work to do, and we got trouble ahead, but we have solutions, and we need your support.
Nigerian protesters paralyzed Africa's biggest city, Lagos, on Monday, blocking the airport as widespread demonstrations sparked by police brutality spiraled. The waiver demonstrations began some 10 days ago when crowds took to the streets over abuses by the police's loathed special anti-robbery squad. And here, the package of the coronavirus taking up much of the country's health resources, people with other illnesses have been struggling to find treatment.
We are locking the international airport because even from the stomach, I've been hearing Nigeria will be better. Till now, we are suffering. So we want to fight for our rights so that they will know that we are feeling pain inside us. Because this, why we are locking down is we are trying to tell them enough is enough.
And we all know now today, there are many killings everywhere, not even only SARS. Nigeria as a whole need restructuring. Let's go back to where we started. Because had it been our own grandparents act this way, maybe probably this generation will be living in luxury.
Our demand is to eradicate SARS and stop them, not to be operating again, because we don't need them. They are disturbing the nation everywhere. Even they harass you when you are driving, they do whatever they like. So we don't need that anymore. That's why we're here.
Now, while most people believe that contraceptives are important for the health and wellness of families, the support from men is not as much as many would hope for. This, coupled with early sexual activity among teenagers, has reduced the gains made in family planning and population control. Charity Mwangi has this report.
Women in Bungoma County were brought together to discuss a matter that is quite basic as the family unit is in society, but controversial nonetheless. The issue of contraception has gained traction in the recent days on account of early pregnancies that are reportedly on an all-time high.
Start talking to our children at a tender age. Give what is called age-appropriate comprehensive sexuality education.
If you delay the first time that you get pregnant, you'll be able to achieve more.
While interventions seem to be targeting the girl child, the men responsible for the pregnancies appear to be going scot-free.
Where are you
allowing this game to go on? Every day we are quoting statistics here. And what bothers me, when you say 825 girls who are pregnant, it means that 825 men, they are walking around, eating every day, doing whatever it is they do in this county. What have you done about them?
Women, though appreciative of the benefits of contraception, have addressed the side effects of contraceptive drugs. Take Judith Baraza, for instance, a mother of 9 and a business lady. She tells us that though she has been able to pursue her aspirations because of the 15-year reprieve from childbearing, she has suffered the tough side effects that come with it.
Na imefika mahali imeni affect mimi mwenyewe kibinafsi, imeniletea pressure.
Meanwhile, at another event graced by Health CAS Mercy Mwangangi, the access to information on the availability of contraception services and the lack thereof came up.
When I looked at that list, I was actually embarrassed. As duty bearer in government, there is no public health facility that's coming up.
A similar event in Nairobi reiterated the need for girls to be empowered in order to prevent them from falling prey to men with bad intentions. The lack of sanitary towels has also apparently been a key reason why many innocent girls from poor backgrounds give in to the advances from men. And so, in a show of solidarity, the organizers distributed the pads accompanied with words of wisdom to an endangered generation.
Let somebody not fool you because of a pad. You can still say no.
While such interventions are great, stiffer penalties for sexual offences accompanied by a swift judicial process may be what the society needs to combat the problem of unwanted early pregnancies. Statutory rape or sex with a person below the age of 18 currently attracts a penalty of up to 15 years, according to the Sexual Offences Act of 2006. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
So, welcome to Your World again and our discussion this morning, which focuses on contraceptives. And you might wonder what a man is doing leading this kind of discussion, because sometimes we men are the issue. My guests this morning here with me in the studio, Dr. Nelly Bosire, who is a gynecologist, and also across the studio just next door we have another Nelly Munyasia. She is the executive director of the Reproductive Health Network Kenya, and joining us via Zoom is Salim Charo, who is the chairman of Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, Nairobi County. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. And I want to start with you, Nelly Munyasia. Now, there are two Nellys, so I have to be careful which one, Nelly and Nelly B. Let's first of all start with the pandemic. We're still in the middle of this season of the pandemic. What's been the impact as far as contraceptives is concerned, or indeed sexual reproductive health for especially young people?
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me here. So while we appreciate that family planning and access to reproductive health is an essential service and access to it is a fundamental right, we have continuously seen a decline, when it comes to access to reproductive health. And one thing that we were not prepared as a country is we were not prepared for the pandemic. However, our duty bearers need to know that sexual and reproductive health, as more importantly access to contraceptives and family planning, is an essential service that needs to be planned for whether we have a pandemic or we do not have a pandemic.
Okay. Dr. Busire, we saw a huge number of teenage pregnancies in this season. Why?
Well, I would like to first of all take note that we haven't seen them yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. Our children have been home from about mid-March, and so for any who have been unfortunate to fall pregnant, we expect to be seeing these pregnancies 5-6 months down the line, because teenagers don't come out at 2-3 months and say, Mom, I'm pregnant. So they hide this, and if we're counting 6 months from now, this is when we expect to start seeing the numbers that are directly as a result of the pandemic.
What do you think those numbers will say? I mean, you say we haven't seen that evidence yet.
We haven't quite seen that evidence, so we're waiting to see what it will look like. However, the manner in which we collect our information is based on antenatal clinic attendance. This is what the statistics we have been shown currently have been recorded from family planning clinic, antenatal clinic attendance. And we know in the pandemic there has been a massive drop in the usage of these services. So even those numbers that we may get may still not be a true reflection of just how bad the numbers are going to be. However, just going by anecdotal evidence, we do expect that they're definitely going to be very, very high, most especially for the girl child who is disadvantaged economically, because those children have been home for a really long time, and for a lot of them, going to school is actually a form of protection. So having to stay at home, a lot of them coming from abusive households where the abusers are even in the same space with them, knowing how the economy has drastically affected us. We have a lot of people who've been laid off. There's a high level of societal frustrations, and our children get to bear the brunt of it without having any form of protection or where to run to. So we know it's going to look really, really bad, and I don't think we are adequately prepared as a government.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, Salim, when you and your fellow preachers are on the pulpit in the mosques, what kind of issues have you had to deal with during this pandemic, especially as it affects issues of family planning and, generally sexual reproductive health? Have you had to address these kind of issues?
Thank you for inviting me to the show. The first thing is that we should know we are talking of family planning, and we are talking of the use of contraceptives. Here in Islam, in most cases, this is something that is directed to the married couples. So we don't advocate the use of family planning and to unmarried individuals. So, but during the pandemic, there was I don't know where this report came from, but I would suggest that what Dr. Bosire has mentioned is that it was from the attendance of the antenatal care, and it did not really reflect as an effect of the pandemic. But what we really try to encourage, we encourage that parents to take care of their children, because during a time like this, we had so many issues. We had gender-based violence. We had such issues. We had teenagers.
Sorry, Salim, we're struggling. Go ahead. We're struggling with your line a little bit. I may have to move away from you for a second so that we can fix your audio. Give us a few moments while we come back to you to sort out your, so that we can hear you clearly. Yeah, just 1 second. Okay. So, Dr. Bosire, when we talk about contraceptives, what do we actually mean? Let's go back to the basics.
Well, first of all, contraceptives are drugs and medical devices that are basically used to prevent unintended pregnancy. And we have quite a variety of them. And these basically makes, when we talk about contraceptives specifically, we are talking about using these commodities. But overall, that isn't what encompasses the full family planning scope. Because when we're talking about family planning use, we also bring in the natural methods of family planning, where we're talking about counting of safe days, withdrawal methods, and things like that. But when we're talking about the contraceptive commodities, these are now modern methods that are now available in the market. And I would just like to stress that the pharmaceutical industry has not yet finished making these products, because research is ongoing. And in any aspect of healthcare, there's always continued need to improve what exists and to come up with even more commodities for use. So there is quite a wide variety. I usually like to classify them as simply as we have hormonal methods, we have non-hormonal methods, and then it's easier to be able to look at those. And in the non-hormonal methods, then we have things like the use of condoms, which of course have been there time immemorial. We have the what we call the copper-based intrauterine devices, and they are quite different brands. They are available in the market. Then we have the hormonal methods, and when we talk about hormonal methods, we're looking at how we manipulate the woman's own body using externally issued hormones that mimic what the body makes anyway. So women's bodies make both estrogen and progesterone, and we can either use progesterone alone in various forms in which it's availed to the body, or we can combine estrogen with progesterone, and these also come in many types. So if we're looking at the combination hormones, we do have the daily combined contraceptive pills, which have also been around, that women take for 21 days, then take a 7-day break and start a new cycle. And the same combined contraceptives are also available in things like the contraceptive patch, which you just stick on your skin for 7 days and repeat it until 21 days are over, and then you take it out. We have the combined contraceptive rings. These are cervical rings, not yet very common in our setup, but they exist. The progesterone-only contraceptives give us a much wider range. We have the progesterone-only pills, which women have perennially called the mini pill, given to breastfeeding mothers more commonly. We have the injection. Depo-Provera has been around with us for decades. We have the implants that have usually been put in the arm. And now we even have the intrauterine device that is progesterone-based. So broadly, yes.
What is that
very,
available?
very broadly, those are the alternatives that are currently existing.
Okay, and now, Nelly, these are mainly to do with women. What about men? Contraceptives for men, where are we at?
So I think Daktari has really covered broadly on contraceptives that are mostly used by women. And when we look at men, we of course have options that men can also use in terms of just trying to support their women. And we have the vasectomy, which is not so popular. I know given Kenya as a country, then this is an option that not a majority would want to, participate or have it as a family planning method.
Why is that?
I think it's because of our social cultural context, where we believe that women are supposed to, are the ones that have the big responsibility when it comes to family planning and contraceptives. And men believe that they're just supposed to be there to, guide and provide help in decision making. However, over the years, like we've just listened to the lady from Bungoma who said that she's experienced, around 15 years later, she's experiencing side effects of the contraceptives. So if our men also got involved and they appreciated the role they play when it comes to family planning, then we will support women, in taking away a bit of the burden when it comes to side effects related to contraceptives. But I think Kenya as a country, we are not yet there. We've seen men who use condoms, which I think, again, it's not a big, number of men that are taking up the use of condoms. And most of the time, women are the ones that find themselves in situations where they also have to negotiate for condom use. So yes, we have options that men are supposed to be taking part in, but I think given our context as a country, the social and cultural, how we have been brought up, then it's more of a woman, need. It's more of a woman responsibility to take charge of her body when it comes to family planning and use of contraceptives.
Dr. Busiri, so it's still a man's world, even as far as sexual reproductive health is concerned?
Well, at least in Africa it is. The context is changing elsewhere, and in places like Asia, we're seeing men being a lot more proactive and being the ones who want to take up vasectomy a lot more. And it's just really because they're looking at it from a perspective of a woman's reproductive issues are my problem once this baby is born. And so because we probably come from a space where we haven't really enforced very well male responsibility in childbearing, then this continues to persist. But overall, there's also a lot of myths around vasectomy. And until these are corrected, then obviously we're going to have all the wrong reasons why men will not be able to take on contraception. We have had an attempt overall of trying to develop a male hormone-based contraceptive that is reversible, and currently we are not yet successful. So we'll say it's been, we even had a study that was supposed to commence in Kenyatta National Hospital, but it hasn't yet gone on. And probably one of the biggest challenges is willingness of couples to participate in this. But it's not easy. Biologically, the way a man's body is constructed to function, it's a little difficult to find a hormonal contraceptive that will actually arrest manufacturing of sperm without affecting their virility, because that is very testosterone based. So that's the, the very fine line that the scientists have to work with. And the moment we'll have that magic bullet, we will be spot on. And I think it will be a lot easier for men then to be able to take control.
Okay. Well, thank you. Now, a day after the world marked the World Contraceptive Day last month, the life of a man in Warungu County showed a different perspective when it comes to running his household and his reproductive health. He believes that children come from God, and controlling the number may be viewed as limiting God's blessings.
A proud 33-year-old Kukat Kamartum is surrounded by his 3 wives and 19 children. He says they are his pride and joy. The number is non-consequential to him, and so family planning remains a foreign ideology.
Anasema inasafika 15 kwa saizi. Lakini hao waruhusiwi kuhesabu watoto. Watoto ni kama mali. Kwa sisi hawahesabu. Approximately 15, 16.
His children form part of his wealth as dictated by tradition, and so the more they are, the wealthier Kamartum becomes.
Ukiwa na watoto wengi, security inakuwa tight nzuri, maisha inakuwa sasa uko na mali ukiwa na watoto. For example, kama uko na wasichana wengi, hiyo ni msichana mmoja ng'ombe 10, 15. Hiyo ni mali tupu. Kuna ngamia 4 kwa wasichana, kama una wasichana 10 hiyo ni ngamia 40 uko nayo.
That notwithstanding, a different tradition is being peddled to the Pokot community, that of limiting the number of children in order to best take care of them. At the Maron dispensary, however, Thomas Sirikwa, the chief nurse, says the uptake of family planning is a dream amongst the Pokot. At the dispensary, condoms, among other contraceptives, gather dust.
Hiyo sasa ni changamoto. Hapa hiyo haiendi because wenyewe waamini kama hiyo hawapendi kutumia. Lakini vijana tu ndio wanaikuja kuchukua. Lakini kwa couples ama wenye wameoana ni ngumu. Hatujaona.
Especially wenye wako illiterate, wenye wachasoma. Wanafikiria hiyo kitu ni chombo ambacho inaweza haribu sisi kama kina mama. Juni wengine inakuwa geni kwao. Wajawahi tumia na labda wajawahi ona.
Wanaamini ya kwamba maisha ya mtu ni Mungu anapanga. Kwa hivyo wewe kama binadamu huwezi kuja una upanga yako. Huwezi pangia Mungu ile nini. Wao wanafuata ile maneno wakina Guga walikuwa wanafanya. The forefathers walikuwa wanafanya.
This brings to focus the inaccessibility of information on contraception. This, coupled with tough myths and traditions, may mean that contraception may not be embraced anytime soon by the people. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
Okay, so that report there from Warungu. Interesting enough that we don't hear any of the women. They're discussed about what they say, what they think, but not from their own mouths. Nelly, your thoughts on this story? Children are wealth.
And interesting that the woman actually doesn't have a say, and she is the one that is, charged with the responsibility of carrying the several pregnancies. I think there's lack of information, and when we talk about information, then we are looking at this information not getting to the communities. For example, the 19-year-old, if only they had the right information in terms of where to even access services. But again, during the pandemic, we've also seen that access to services has also been a great challenge. And we are looking at the cost also, in terms of the available family planning contraceptives. I know when we go to the government institutions, we are supposed to be getting these contraceptives almost free of charge, but that has not been the case. And we experienced, disruption in supplies of commodities and just a disruption in the supply chain, and you'd go to facilities and you'll not get the family planning methods. However, we need to make a deliberate effort in terms of just making sure that women understand that these services are available and these services are affordable, and them understanding what side effects or what are some of the dangers they put themselves into when they have to give birth to a bigger number of children, because all these children have to go through their bodies, and the body has a limit. So it gets to a point where they will experience some side effects or some complications as a result of giving birth to a number of children. Sorry. Another challenge that we have seen is opposition. We've seen religious groups providing wrong information when it comes to contraceptives. And this is totally misleading. As Dr. mentioned before, these are scientifically proven methods, whether medical, or non-hormonal, and they have been tested over time. So really, as duty bearers and key actors in this space, that is including the religious leaders, the community gatekeepers, they need to have the right information so that they're passing this information to the communities, especially the women, so that they're able to access services, and make decisions, because they have a right to make decisions in terms of the number of children they want to have.
Okay, Nelly, now that you mentioned religious leaders, we've got Salim back on the line. Salim, welcome back. Now, earlier we mentioned about... earlier we mentioned about sadly, the number of teenage pregnancies we anticipate we might witness actually maybe by sometime next year. I'm assuming some of these will be young Muslim girls.
Okay, yeah, and it's unfortunate because the morality also in the country has gone up, and as religious leaders, I just want to correct Madam what she has mentioned, that we give the wrong information. But it's not that we give the wrong information. It is based on the effects that they have on the individual or whoever is using these contraceptives in most cases. And Islam does not prohibit anything that is natural and that does not have side effects. But if we come and start saying that we are going to provide the contraceptives to teenage girls, it means that we are also promoting immorality in some sense.
But Salim,
we know what to...
But Salim,
yes.
These young girls are having sex. That's why we have young teenage mothers-to-be.
Yes, it is true, and but what we are required to be doing is that because parents have stopped taking care of their children the way because you are going to find out that most parents, they are both working. The mother is working, the father is working, and they don't take their full responsibility as parents. And this is what we are emphasizing as religious leaders, that they should take up their parenthood and, and talk to their children that this is wrong. And based on religion, because here I'm talking as a Muslim, but also in Christianity, sex before marriage is prohibited, is not allowed. And when we start encouraging them and providing them with condoms, with family plannings, it is as if now we have approved what they are doing, and we are encouraging them to continue doing that. So, and at the end of the day, they'll be, will be promoting immorality, and the end product, how things are going to turn.
Now, Salim, from my limited reading and understanding of the Quran, there isn't a single verse that actually directly prohibits use of contraceptives per se. So shouldn't you be sharing this information and allowing these children that choice?
Okay, yeah, it's true what you're saying, but I've mentioned before that we are not allow this is harmful. You know, we just was shared here. A certain lady mentioned that.
Salim, I'm
Yes.
very sorry. We're struggling again with your line. We'll try to fix it one more time so that we can hear you clearly, especially on this really vital point that you're making. So allow us to come back to you when we have a stable connection to you. Dr. Busire, your thoughts?
Well, I think let us appreciate one thing, that reproductive health begins once a child is physically in a state of being able to reproduce. And that doesn't happen at 18. It actually happens at 13 and now as young as 9. So you have a child whose body is ready to get pregnant and her mind is not ready to be pregnant. So what then does that mean? It's creating a very difficult space that we have to navigate for the best interest of this child. Yes, a child below the age of 18 should not be having sex, but look at you and look at me. My mom is now in her 60s. Actually, she's in her 70s now. And she had her first child when she was barely 16. What does that say? This body hasn't changed. This body has been able to do this for a really long time, but with a lot of risks. And this is what science is revealing. So the laws saying let's at least wait till 18 aren't because the body is not ready, but because the risks of getting pregnant below the age of 18 are a lot higher. Which is why we have laws that need to be enforced to keep this person safe. However, stepping away from that, there's been a lot of discussion about parents not parenting, and I think we need to stop. We need to stop because at 15, the parents gave their children up for marriage, and it was regarded as parenting. So what has changed? These same parents were still parenting, were even regarded as better parents. It's not that the parents of this generation are not trying, they're not doing their best within their context. They are, and every time we keep hitting them with you're not doing a good enough job, we're not helping. We're supposed to be motivating parents and helping them to be able to deliver. But every time we keep telling them, your children got pregnant, it's your fault. No, it's not. There's no parent in this world who wakes up and decides that her child should get pregnant at the age of 13. So that narrative needs to change. And we all then need to get together and say, how are we keeping our adolescents safe? And as I say, when I listen to Salim, and I have a lot of respect for religious discourse and what their beliefs are, because I'm also a Christian, I also have to live up to the reality that sometimes children choose a different path. And just because my mom is a staunch Christian doesn't necessarily mean I was going to turn out that way. So in this space where this child is trying to find themselves, are we going to turn our backs on them and say, oh, we're not going to listen, and so we're not going to take care of your needs, and you shouldn't be having access to contraception? However, on the same note, how are we then bringing moms and fathers to the discussion table with their children to tell them that, look, when mom and dad said no, it's not because they think you don't have a mind to make your own mind, but it's beyond them even. Okay. There's a whole lot more that goes into the no that is not just because your parents said so. And in the same vein, for instance, do we say we will not have rehab for drug addicts? Isn't it illegal to actually take some of these recreational drugs? But aren't we having people using these drugs? Aren't they getting sick out of it? And aren't we putting in place even government initiatives to take care of the addicts? It's in the same space. We are having adolescents who absolutely refuse to listen to what's right for them. Okay. So do we want them to have 17 children because they didn't listen?
Nelly, let me bring you in on this as well. Your thoughts and comments?
Yeah, I think we just need to embrace a multisectoral approach when it comes to issues teenage pregnancy. And this is because it is happening. We might want to say no, we might want to blame the parents, we might want even to blame the teachers. But if we are not going to sit on a round table as key actors, bring the Ministry of Education, bring the Ministry of Health, bring the religious leaders, bring the Parents Association, and just have a conversation on how do we better provide this information, how do we better make sure that our young girls who are sexually active can access the right information and be guided through, you know, making the right decision for themselves? Then I think this is a conversation we will keep on having year after year.
Okay. Salim, welcome back. While you are away, the discussion went into the direction of we shouldn't completely blame the parents because sometimes life happens on children.
Yeah, it's true. At times they choose a different path, but you know, by supporting it, you know, it doesn't help, because we are told we should learn from mistakes, and once a mistake has occurred, it means that we need to come and correct, and it should remain so that it is wrong. They have committed something that is wrong, that is not allowed. And that's how we should remain. And on the other hand, it's true. We are supposed now to come and sit down and start this discussion. Yeah, if they are 15 years and they are sexually active, now what are we supposed to do? Because we've been taught from a religious background that we should abstain until we get married. So if she's 15 years and she's sexually active, what is she supposed to do? This is a boy, an underage boy, and he's sexually active. What are we supposed to? How are we supposed to direct them as religious leaders, as parents, and as a community? You know, this is where we start. We are supposed to start this conversation. But if
so what do you do?
And we tell them,
what do we do in that scenario where you have a 15-year-old girl who is sexually active? What should we be doing about that?
Okay, it depends on how you're going to take it. But you know, coming back to Islam, we've been told if you are sexually active and you are not ready to get married, then you should start the practice or the habit of fasting, because you know it cuts down the sexual urge. You know, this is one of the things that we are supposed to do as from the religious
Sorry,
perspective.
Salim, with due respect to the teachings of Islam, I do fast myself, and I don't see how it prevents pregnancy.
It's not. I'm talking about sexuality,
yes,
in general, and that's why I've said this is a discussion that we are supposed to come up with. You know, we are not supposed to, you know, to approve it as now, since you are sexually active, so use this contraceptive, use this, I don't know, you know, the condoms that are provided to the teenagers. You know, we will be supporting immorality in a way. But when we start discussing to our children and tell them that, you know, this is wrong and this is not yet time. Yeah, even though they choose a different path, but the fact will remain that it is not allowed to engage in sexual activities before marriage. You know, that's the religious stance.
And we respect that principle. We understand that. It's just that sometimes the young ones will end up doing that. Now, is it easier, or is it better to let them face the complications of pregnancy at that kind of age and all the delicate things that could go wrong, or offer them a choice to prevent, certainly try and save their lives even?
Here we have two choices. Number one, to prevent them from indulging into sexual activities. Or secondly, we marry them off, and of which we know it's against the state. But you know, if we encourage them, because I don't know whether it's we have two Nellies, but I think it was Madame Bosire, if I'm not wrong. But she mentioned that you know, her mother, at least, or if I don't know whether I got it right, but at least at the age of 15 or 16, she got her first child. You know, so it's something that at least we should encourage, because it will be something respectable. You know that so and so is married to so and so. But you know, if we just leave it, and you know, it will lead to multiple sexual partners, and you know, eventually pregnancy, and will cause the school dropouts and so on.
So your concern is it's okay to have children at the age of 15, 16, as long as you're married?
As long as you're married.
Okay, Dr. Busire.
So you get to see just how complex this problem is. This is not just medical issue, it is also a social issue, it is also a religious issue, because a human being is an all-rounded person, and their choices in life are very much informed by these kinds of influences, you know. And so we have to then look at what exists, and this is why the law now comes in. When we condone child marriage, for instance, just because child marriage then protects the child from multiple sexual partners, then of course then we are having a problem right there, okay? Because the law is very clear that children should not be married. Children should have an opportunity to be children, and let them be. And it's in the same space that we should encourage the children to embrace their childhood, because it is only for a season. And part of then motivating them to embrace their childhood includes telling them that, look, all these issues of sex, they await you. You know, it's coming right up. It's not going anywhere. For this time, why don't you focus on being a child? And that's the kind of positive encouragement we want our children to enjoy being children. Now, this privilege is actually available to very few children. A lot of the children who we're finding with teenage pregnancies, it has nothing to do with this. Children are coerced. We have we've just seen children being given sanitary pads and seeing how little they trade sex for. A packet of pads is 50 shillings. And this child cannot afford 50 shillings. So when somebody has 19 daughters and is not able to afford 50 shillings a month for each of their 19 daughters, then how do we expect this child to not trade for sex? And they will get 50 shillings for this cycle, and this period may never come, because for the next 9 months they're going to be pregnant. So we have to look at this from a much bigger picture, and we all have to come to the table, leave our beliefs behind and what we think, and say, look, we're talking about this child and what's good for them. In the same space, in as much as we'll talk about not giving teenagers contraception, we have to realize that all these teenage moms will come. I'm a practitioner. My job is to care for pregnant women, irrespective of what age they come in pregnancy. And care doesn't stop when the child is born. Care goes beyond this first child. Now, as I am ensuring that my adolescent mother thrives, I also must ensure that the child she bore also thrives. What does this translate to? It means that I must prevent her from getting pregnant again, so that this one who's born has a chance to thrive, at least to see the age of 5. So what does that mean? The contraception must be given. The same way I'll give it to a 40-year-old woman who has had her 3rd child is the same way I'll give it to a 15-year-old girl who has had a child, because, hey, she's already demonstrated she can do this, and she will do this if we don't stop it from happening again.
Okay, Salim, are you still with us?
Yes, Dad. Yes, Dad.
Your thoughts?
Okay. My sister, or she, let me just call her Nelly because she's Nelly.
Dr. Busire.
She mentioned, Dr. Busire. Okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Busire. Sorry. She has mentioned that we should leave children to embrace childhood. But, we cannot let them embrace childhood through sexual activities, which is considered, adult, other stuff. So, it needs to come up and look at this problem. How are we going to solve it? And, when we say, at least when they get married, it does not deny them access to education and other stuff, because in our context, when you are talking of family planning and contraceptives, we are talking in a context of married couples. So in this case, it will be allowed. But outside marriage, this is something that is not allowed from any religious perspective.
So Salim, let me just clarify from an Islamic perspective. What happens, or what does the teaching say regarding a 15-year-old girl who unfortunately finds herself pregnant? Where should she turn to?
Okay, in most cases, they are accepted in the community because also you look at, when we resort to abortion, also is prohibited, and we do not support, abortion, and so they are accepted, but they have a different way of handling the child. The child won't be given the father's or the one responsible's name, and it will continue that way.
Okay, Nelly, you've been quiet. Come into this discussion now.
I've been quiet because I'm broken. I can't imagine a 15-year-old, the option she's being given is getting married. And I imagine if they are 100 of them and we are giving them away for marriage, what kind of society are we bringing up? I think we need to go back to what provisions the Ministry of Health has. And I want to talk about the national guideline for adolescent and youth that speaks for access to services. And it provides that adolescent and youth have a right to access youth-friendly services, either the community level, facility, or even, through telemedicine, which is an innovation that we came up with during the COVID pandemic. We are not supposed to punish our adolescent and youth just because they've taken a different path, away from the religious teachings or away from what the parents expect from them. We are supposed to protect them, and we're supposed to provide them with information that helps them have a better future. And given that our Ministry of Health appreciates that sex might happen anyway, regardless of the information that we've provided, then it has put a policy in place to ensure that the girls can still continue with their lives, with or without getting pregnant, and they can continue with their education and get the babies when they are ready, and when their bodies are also ready, for them to carry a pregnancy to term and become responsible mothers. Okay. I'm thinking that the issue of comprehensive sexuality education has been moralized for rather too long. And with all due respect to religious leaders and having Salim here, I still want to reiterate that we need to sit down, because we are not at any time going to give away our 15-year-old for marriage. And I think this is a commitment that our president made during the summit last year. Okay. And as actors in this space, we only need to support our president and make sure that we are providing options for our young girls, the adolescents and youth, to make sure that they are accessing services that the Ministry of Health has also, again, committed through the health facilities and trained healthcare providers across the country to provide these services. I think early marriage is a no. Yeah. Okay, well,
thank you very much, Nelly, for that. Now, we'll take a short break from your world. We'll be right back with more. But let's see what you've been saying on our hashtag New Normal regarding contraceptives. We asked you, what is your view on contraceptives? Do you use any form of contraceptives? Why or why not? Esi Waweru, you say, well, my culture doesn't allow this. People think you've gone nuts, okay? My panel is taking notes. Evelyn Achengo Diambo, you say, use of contraceptives will save the nation a big deal in reducing the number of maternal deaths resulting from unintended pregnancies. Asante, Evelyn. You're a pragmatist, you say, and you say, does that include condoms? Yes, I believe it's a form of contraceptives. Dr. Bosire nodding, saying yes. Humphrey, whether use of contraceptives prevents unwanted pregnancy and other diseases transmitted sexually, it is paramount to use them. If you're not married, then condoms should do. If married, then you can discuss on what to use. Thank you, Humphrey. This is Matthew Zondoro. Well, the best contraceptive to use without doubt and side effects is abstain. I'm sure Salim would agree with that. If one doesn't want children, diseases, and all those side effects, then abstain from sex. And this is Pinky Muscle, say, normalize talking about contraceptives. By now, there should be sex education curriculum that includes it comprehensively from at least high school level. Thank you, Pinky. And this one is from Babalaki. Most parents are injecting their daughters at 5, 10-year-olds, as is the demand for sex among youth is quite high. Well, thank you, Baba. Lucky, we'll come back for that and more discussion on your world. For now, a short break.
Mix of the Week in association with Airtel.
I don't charge my energy. For the journey, for the journey. Bossy.
Using data bundles. Get 500 MB free daily, 3.5 GB free weekly, and 15 GB free monthly with every bundle purchase. Dial *544#. Not just for a few, but for every one of you. Airtel, the honest network.
When I was in prison, I thought a lot about you.
This is not acceptable!
We know you love milk, and now there is milk that loves you. With Gold Crown lactose-free milk, you can enjoy the richness of natural cow's milk without any of the digestion discomfort. Gold Crown lactose-free milk that loves you.
In the assistia meet na Absa, the official banking partner of the EPL in Africa. Stand a chance to win 1 million Kenya shillings every month when you deposit into your Absa personal or business account. That's Absa. That's Africanacity.
Maji mdosi wangu ametupa simu yangu ndani ya maji.
Mdosi wako kwa sawa. Venye Nkirota ameniambia ajui na akimpigia simu ashiki. Hi, guy, what the?
For the women who deserve more, Moped is now in Kenya and more than 40 countries. With its nylon-free surface, new Moped has unique softness and up to 100% protection. Your skin will love it.
On this week's episode of Talk It Out from the BBC Live Clinic. Living with pain, whether mental or physical, can be a daunting experience for many people.
Nilikuwa katika dilemma na nilijisi pia mpweke kwa sababu sikuwa na mtu wa kumwambia.
Would you say you felt particularly stigmatized?
They will judge you. They will judge you at any cost.
When people do not understand something, they tend to, label it.
Remember to catch us this and every week on Talk It Out.
The procedure of reporting assets to Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Write an email to holders@ufaa.go.ke to request your profile to be created. Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Welcome back to Your World, and this morning our focus is on contraceptives. My guest this morning, Dr. Nelly Bosire, with me here in the studio. She's a gynecologist. We're also joined next door studio by Nelly Munyasia, who is the Executive Director of Reproductive Health Network Kenya. And joining us via Zoom is Salim Charo, who's the Chairman, Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, Nairobi branch. Now, we are going to hear the views of young people shortly in a minute. But first of all, maybe with your help, Dr. Bosire and Nelly across the room, I want to run across some very common myths about contraception and get your professional opinion. The first one, I'm breastfeeding, so I can't get pregnant.
Wow. So breastfeeding is a form of contraception. But by the time you qualify to say that, you have to fulfill a very, very strict criteria. That one, you're exclusively breastfeeding, babies taking nothing else, no formula supplementation. And so this makes it very difficult for moms who then resume work. And two, that you cannot be having a period. So we do actually tell moms that yes, during breastfeeding, as long as you're exclusively breastfeeding, you're home, the baby is latching, expressing in the office and storing it in the fridge all day and coming home in the evening does not qualify.
Right.
Because it's a continuous trigger of the actual reflex of breastfeeding that provides the protection that is needed. And so this then can be used at least up to 6 months while the baby is on exclusive breastfeeding. And of course, once weaning comes in, then it stops being a form of contraceptive.
Okay, there's some very strange ones here, Dr. Bear with me. You can't get pregnant if the woman doesn't have an orgasm.
Oh, that's highly, highly, highly incorrect.
Okay.
Women are raped and they get pregnant, they did an orgasm.
Okay.
So yeah, it doesn't apply.
I won't get pregnant. What's the next one? Yes, I won't get pregnant if we have sex standing up.
Well, let's just say the sperm has an amazing capacity to swim against gravity. Yes, you will get pregnant.
It can be in the human body for how many hours again?
And it can actually last for about 72 to 96 hours.
Okay.
So yes, you can still get pregnant even if you have sex while standing up.
Nelly, what else have you heard? In terms of myths?
If you don't penetrate, ukiguza tu, you know, the mtaani.
Okay.
Yeah.
Don't.
Yeah.
We're still on a breakfast show. We don't want Ezekiel Mutu or no.
I know.
But yes, okay, we get the picture. Very graphic. Like sasa usirudie tuambie tu so and
yeah,
the answer to that.
Yeah, so I mean, like Doka said, the sperms will really swim very fast. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
Actually, just to that, we have seen pregnant girls who are still technically virgins.
Wow.
Yes. So as long as this ejaculation happens close enough, you'd be amazed at how hard nature works to support pregnancy happening.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's a medical conversation, so excuse us, Dr. Mutua, if we went overboard a little bit. Now, talking about contraception, we've been hearing the views of some young people, 3 young Kenyans who are in discussion with our roving reporter, Brian Moshiri, asking them their views on a number of issues regarding contraceptives. Here's what they said.
And I am in studio to discuss, get this, contraceptives with my peers. In studio, I have Emma Swa, who's a vlogger who specializes in education, which is sexual. And I'm also joined by Joy Nkirote and Hussein Mahamoud, who are both my peers and are here to fuel the conversation. And we'll get straight into it. And Emma, I'm gonna just start with you because you do this kind of thing usually on YouTube. So why would you do this? Mbona unafanya kitu kai, sex education, vlogging on sex? Why?
So the reason why I chose sex education, I'll give you 2 reasons. The first reason is when it comes to sex, men and women, there's usually a disconnect between that because you find that we view sex in different ways. We don't view it in the same way. You know, sex to a man means it's completely different to how a woman will view sex and what it means to them. So there's just that disconnect and there's always that conflict even in terms of satisfaction and what have you. What pleases a man might not necessarily please a woman. So because of that disconnect and lack of connection, I just felt the need to actually just come and express each side and so that we can find a middle balance, like just meet in the middle. And then the other reason why I chose this topic is because there's also a gap between sex education and entertainment. You'll find that, for example, most people will get their education from music, and music is purely entertainment. So like you'll find people rapping about sex and what have you, and it does not give like the information that is necessarily needed. So there's that gap between sex education, like people who really are vocal about sex, they do it in sort of entertainment, and it is not that detailed and in depth. And then you'll find the people who do it who are sex educators, they don't necessarily, it's not entertaining. And when when you want to attract young people, when you want them to view, when you want them to learn, you need to add that aspect of entertainment. So it was just to bridge the gap between entertainment and sex education, so that more people will be drawn into it and more people can learn and,
Okay, and perhaps let me just bring in the other guys, Joy and Hussein. Perhaps I can start with you, Hussein. Do we have institutions that have wameongelelea kuhusu contraceptives? Do young people know about contraceptives? Are we aware?
Not enough awareness has been done.
Okay.
You see, the world loves sex, eh? People love to have sex because it's fun, pleasure, and people want to enjoy sex. But the point is, sex comes with a lot of things. There are byproducts, there are products that are maybe anticipated, others that are not anticipated. Children are involved, STDs are involved, that's sexually transmitted diseases. And that's why when having sex, safety should be the first priority.
Okay.
So awareness might have been raised. There are organizations that give contraceptives for free. Some of them give awareness, but certainly with the young population, not enough has been done.
Unajua watu wenye washaitumia any form of contraception, like wanajua, do your peers, your friends, wanajua contraceptives ni nini and what it actually does for you? Is there enough education out there?
Okay, I feel like we know, but we really don't know enough. I know of an institution, I know of Maristops.
Yes.
They have these conferences and such. But then the big question is, how many people are they reaching out to? We have the knowledge, yes, but how much knowledge do we have? So I feel like my peers, my friends, myself, we really know about contraceptives, but do we know it all? I think when the word contraceptives is mentioned to someone, this is something that you'll want to go back to Google and know something about it or more about it. So I think the awareness is there, but it's not enough. We still have milestones to go.
Yeah, we have institutions to kind of look up to.
Yeah.
Yes, just take it up,
I think young people are aware of contraceptives. They know contraceptives exist.
We're happy.
But I don't think they use them. I really don't think they use them. I think they know they're contraceptives, but I don't think they use them.
So in your view, why would someone just leave themselves out like that? I mean,
the reason why they don't use contraceptives is because they're not properly informed, because you hear there's these side effects, you might get fat, you might not have children again, and it will be, there's just all these things surrounding contraceptives, and it's not actually accurate information, So the people are just scared to use contraceptives because they're like, what if I use contraceptives and then I never have a baby, or I become infertile? What if I use contraceptives and then I gain weight, So most people just rely on this unreliable form of contraception, like the pull out and safe days, and then you have some people relying heavily on P2. They rely heavily on P2, but no one is considering a long-term contraceptives because they're not informed.
Yes, probably the information, the use might be restricted by how the society views it,
Yeah, true.
the availability, the efficacy, and now comes back to the point of safety. As I told you initially, sex is sacred. That's why you should have criteria to define what a contraceptive is. Maybe about the efficacy, the side effects, availability, affordability. If I can't afford maybe a condom, which might be expensive in my capacity as a young person, I'll not go for it. When I have the coitus interruptus, which is the withdrawal method, as she said, that is probably the widest used method.
Yeah.
But there are guys, if I may just interject, that say, mimi siwezi tumia condom. I just don't feel sex when I'm using a condom.
That's why I'm
Do they have a point? Wakona point wakisema hivyo?
Yes, they have a point. Because contraceptives ideally on the use should be on mutual agreement by the partners. You cannot go and have sex with your wife, let's say, and you want to use a condom and she's not comfortable with it. That will be very unfair. That's why the concept of now mutual agreement and mutual pleasure comes in. It is true, maybe to some extent condoms reduce the sexual pleasure. It might be true and they really have a point. That's now when it comes to the information now, and you will go for the options that are available to use. It's
Also-
not must that you use a condom.
Joy?
I also feel like
Yes.
when we are talking about contraceptives, what are you looking forward to prevent? I feel like mostly girls, when you're looking for contraceptives, you're thinking about pregnancy. But when you're talking about sex, it really isn't about pregnancy. There is more to do with that, something more that you should keep yourself safe from, like for instance, HIV, STDs. But that is not the first thing that clicks to us, to our minds when we think about sex. We're just thinking of, oh, pregnancy, I can't deal with that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you'll go for it to avoid pregnancy, then you forget the other things that you should also be preventing.
Let me just throw something inside there, because I recently personally did a story for NTV that showcases the fact that young people in Kenya would rather deal with a sexually transmitted disease than a pregnancy.
Yeah.
Why do you think, in your capacity, Emma, why do you think this is the scenario, that I would rather deal with a sexually transmitted disease than a pregnancy as a young person in Kenya? Why?
Because we all know sex is still seen as a taboo. So, you know, with STDs, I can suffer in silence. No one has to know. There's that confidentiality. I can just go to the hospital, get my medication, get healed, and what have you. But then with pregnancy, you can't hide it. Everyone will know you had sex.
They argue it's permanent.
It's permanent. Everyone will know you had sex, and nobody wants that, you see, because everybody wants their parents to think they're virgins. Everybody wants to be the holy virgin, the, you know, sacred, all white, and what have you. So people would rather, with STDs, no one will know. So it's easier.
I'm going to turn this into a class and mtainua tu mikono. Genuinely tu. Juu hata mimi nitainua. Ni wangapi hapa nyinyi wote sisi sote wanne, ni wangapi tushai have a direct keen sex conversation with our parents? Mimi sijai, so sitainua mkono. I've never.
What are we talking about when you talk of
Like,
sex
have you
conversation?
ever had a scenario with your parents where you actually sat down with your parents and they let you know that, okay, so there's something known as sex?
Yeah, and they told me there is sex, and if you have it, you'll get pregnant. If you get pregnant, you'll put shame to yourself. So avoid, abstain, and such. Then they tell you, like, I think contraceptives is something that just came up. It isn't something that my mother talked to me about. I think it was a topic that was had somewhere. Then she mentioned, and she was like, yeah, kuna vitu zinaitwa contraceptives. But in case of an emergency, that is when you use them, you see? So I don't
emergency kind of thing.
Yes, I don't like rape, such things. I don't feel like sex education is something that is taught deeply in an African home setting. I feel like it's something that is key.
Hussein, perhaps if I can just bring you on board, is it important for us to have a contraceptive conversation with my child? I mean, let me give you the thought of an African parent. Hussein, mimi ni baba yako, nimekuongelesha kuhusu condom. Or umekuja ukani approach ukaniuliza, Dad, I'd like to know about what is a condom, what does it do, what does this, hizi vitu zina entail nini? Immediately as an African parent, nishaanza kujua kijana wangu Hussein ashaanza ku have sex.
Because he knows out of curiosity, I might try and see what that condom is used for. That is what the highly conservative African culture means. Okay. Personally, I've never had a sex conversation with my parents not at any point, because of the conservativeness of the nature and of African culture and tradition that we have. Probably the parent, the first thing he thinks of, if I start telling him out of curiosity, he will start go and see for himself what a condom is used for, how it feels to have sex. Without that one,
Yeah.
Ideally, what also happens is there is also the aspect of religion in it.
Yes.
It is a sin for me. The parents knows from the way I was raised from when I was a young child. Sex you should only have sex with someone you are married to, your legally married wife only. So everything else is a sin religiously and also socially because of our African culture.
Emma, perhaps if I can also now drag you to the conversation. I personally go to a church that talks to me strictly about abstinence. Thou shalt not have sex until you're married. And it's that, and if you do that, you have sinned and you are away from the ways of God.
I think when they set it up, they probably set it up to keep the young people safe and what have you, but it's becoming unrealistic to some extent because nobody is abstaining.
Well, there are some people who will argue that They actually are abstaining.
I mean, I think in their head they're just trying their best to protect us, and in their head that's what protection is. But at the end of the day, that is not realistic, because people are having sex and they're having unsafe sex. They're contracting STDs. They're getting pregnant. They are resorting to unsafe abortions and what have you. And that in reality is not working. And then when you bring up the topic of contraceptives, then they start thinking, oh my God, my daughter is having sex. So what they want to do is they want to tell you sex is really bad. If you have sex with a man, he will degrade you, he won't value you. So
atakuona wewe ni
atakudharau.
Joy, unafanya kama kuna kitu unataka kuleta.
That's the only sex education we get, atakudharau.
Okay, just to add on that,
Yes, Joy.
whether you teach them or not, the world will teach them. It's better you do it yourself as a parent. Let them know what you stand for, but allow them also the chance to pick what they want to. Wakisuffer the consequences, it was their choice. Let them deal with it.
Okay.
Also to girls and boys out there, abstinence is not a sin. I think our society is making it look like now abstaining is... Why are you abstaining?
Yes, yes.
Si mbaya. If that is what you want to stand for, please go with it. Abstain. Also to girls, contraceptives isn't only a prevention for pregnancy. Look in deeper details about your body, your health. Stop trusting men, as in, ati huyu ananipenda, as in, wewe, utakuwa disappointed. So think about it deeper than just pregnancy.
Okay. Emma, perhaps you can close this. I mean, you're in this industry. You do this a lot
so
on YouTube.
What I would love parents to know is the fact that we are not against what you're teaching young people. If you're teaching them to abstain, you're teaching them to wait until marriage, you're teaching them to, abide by their religion and what have you, it's okay. It's your child, you have a vision for them, obviously you love them, but leave a room of doubt to the fact that they might be having sex. Just have that in your mind. They are probably having sex. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying most of them are probably having sex. So have that conversation with them.
Emma, a parent is perhaps watching you right now and is like looking at their daughter or their son who's in campus and is like, "Iyo ni ukweli." So, in finality, what you're saying is, let's have a genuine conversation with our children.
Yes.
Let's have a genuine conversation with everyone as an institution.
Yeah.
I gave you before.
Also, yes. And don't come to me with that tone.
You're having sex. As you have that conversation, avoid judging and avoid being biased. Be open. Be open to their thoughts. Like, no, like that parent who is looking at their son like, why are you looking at your son like that? This is just a conversation.
Just open up a conversation and
stop being judgmental. Acha kuconclude vitu jambiwa. Yeah, exactly.
Just ensure your child is
safe. So just have an open conversation about it.
Hussein says ensure your child is safe, number one.
Absolute safety lies in abstinence.
Thank you very much, guys.
Wow, a really fascinating conversation there with these three young guys, Hussein, Emma, Joy, and led by Brian. Amazing. Can't remember what I would have been speaking to my mother about when it comes to contraceptives. Now, that conversation ended on a high, but it's not complete. They really dug into more details, so be sure to catch the rest of the discussion on YouTube at NTV Kenya. It will be posted straight after this show. Okay, thank you, guys. Salim, were you listening to all this?
Salim, were you listening to all this? Yes, I was listening, yes.
Be proud of Hussein, that young, dedicated Muslim, person who wants to wait until he gets married before having sex.
True. And, that's what we want to see our teenagers going up.
Hello, Salim, you can...
Hello, Salim. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Your thoughts on the discussion?
I think that was a sincere discussion in the first place, and what I think Hussein was saying. Okay, both what they were saying, it's true, because it's something that is happening in the first place, and secondly, it is something that parents need to start a conversation with their children. They should guide them, based on religion, the general morality, and and so on and so forth. Yes.
Okay, and you heard there, definitely young people are busy. They're having sex. Now, do you believe it?
Yes, okay. There is no point that I've denied that young people are having sex, But we've seen from the immorality, from the music, you know, from the social media, you know, we know this is what is happening. But what we really need to have is a serious conversation, and you know, to show the young people the direction that they should take. You know, and you know, once we emphasize that if you cannot abstain, then you should definitely get married. You know, and this does not deny one's opportunity to education and other responsibilities, because I've mentioned earlier, in marriage we are allowed to at least to practice family planning. And I just want to add on something that before you showed that the discussion from the young men and women is that breastfeeding is a form of contraceptive, and in Islam it is one of the natural ways that is emphasized, because we've been told that we must breastfeed for 2 years. So, you know, these are some of the natural ways that are emphasized. And, you know, just what, you know, yeah, talking of virgins getting pregnant, we had the case of Mary.
Okay, I hear you. Salim, thank you. Nelly, what was your what was your takeaway from that discussion? Fascinating discussion.
As parents, we need to have those difficult conversations with our children, because like it's said, charity begins at home. And we need to get to our point where we let our young children, you know, be it girls or boys, trusting us and trusting the kind of information that we are giving them. And we also have to be, you know, very objective and just say it as it is, because if we are not going to provide this information to them, they're going to get this information from their peers, which might not be right.
Okay. And for you, Dr. Busiri, I picked up a couple of things here. One of them, the fear of if you use contraceptives, you might get fat and possibly not have children. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that was a conversation that must be enlightening to a lot of adults. And I don't just mean parents, I mean adults. Because the youth are in a space where they have exposure to a lot of information. But the correctness of that information will always be in question. Who is the authority? Who is speaking up about this? We have, for instance, a lot of conversations going on social media about contraceptives, but the people giving the information do not even have the qualification to give this information, and this information they're giving sometimes is incorrect. But because they are regarded as social influencers, then you'll find that the youth really want to listen to them. And it doesn't matter whether what they're saying is right or wrong. Also, a lot of people on social media will give their personal experiences. And personal experience is not a reflection of what the science really is. So it's time we have these conversations and probably broadening up this space to have the actual people talk about what they're good at. You know, what they, I mean, I wouldn't be talking about, for instance, what Mr. Salim is talking about. I would respect his space to talk about that. In the same space, I would expect him to respect my space as a professional to talk about the actual facts of this, so that we're able to give the information to these young people that they require. And coming to talk about the myths that come with contraception, there are really many, and there's need for a very consistent conversation on what is a fact and what is not a fact. Will contraceptives make you fat? Number one, there is no blanket statement for contraceptives. As I listed them, you were surprised at how many they are. And so we have to individualize this to each contraceptive. On top of that, we have to realize that there's no one size fits all. If you walk into a pub, people are not all drinking Tusker. Why? Because everybody has what works for them. If you lay out a buffet dinner, people are not all eating the vegetables or the meat or the starch. People are picking what works for them. This is the same space with contraceptives, and it's why our scientists are in the labs every single day coming up with more and more alternatives to find what works for every single person. So, do contraceptives make you fat? The only culprit we have are progesterone-based contraceptives that can make some people fat. Some is the key word. 1/3 of people who will use either the injection or the implant can actually gain weight, remarkably, scientifically proven. The other 1/3 will absolutely have no weight issues, and the other 1/3 will actually dramatically lose weight. So it's not a one-size-fits-all, and you have to find what works for you with the appropriate guidance of a trained healthcare professional who can say, this works, this doesn't work. Okay? We have had issues with you cannot have children. That is incorrect. The rate of fertility and infertility issues in our society is pretty high. Okay? So there are a lot of women and men who will be struggling with some level of subfertility or complete infertility. But if they've not tried to have a child, they don't know. But because they know they don't want to have a child at this time, they will use a contraceptive, isn't it? So when you eventually get off your contraceptive and you cannot conceive, the contraceptive is just a red herring. It is not your cause for the infertility. You had this, whether you had used the contraceptive or not, this was coming up when you're ready to conceive. We need to separate these facts. We need to remember that not every contraceptive is appropriate for everyone, because some people have medical conditions, people who are hypertensive, who are diabetic, who have other conditions, who are also on other medications for other treatments. They have to have very careful consideration for what they can and cannot use. So contraceptives, again, isn't something you walk into off the street into a pharmacy and say, give me that, and you go. You could actually be setting yourself up for trouble. But remember, every medicine we use is actually a potential poison.
So ideally, you should consult first?
Please consult, find out what works for you, and if one method doesn't work, doesn't mean they're all bad. It simply means that this doesn't work for you. My favorite analogy, there is absolutely nothing wrong with chicken or fish, isn't it? But I'm allergic, and so absolutely I cannot eat either any meat. Does that make meat bad? No, it doesn't. It just simply means that my body cannot handle it. Yours will handle it perfectly. This applies to contraceptives.
Dr. Busire, thank you very much indeed. Now we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back for more on this discussion from your world on contraceptives. But we have some comments from you on our hashtag New Normal. Here's what you've been saying. Mukame, you say 99% are hormonal based, that's contraceptives, and I believe they're highly associated with hypertension at a later age. They scare me off. I wish we had better exterior options like spermicides. I feel this is jeopardy to our women and their health. Confused face. Whew. Okay. Pesh, you say, this is a very wide subject that cannot be discussed on the internet, but it's nice to start a conversation on it as a country. Don't forget, we're in the era of my rights. Okay, haki yetu. Abraham Wekesa, Christianity point of view remains abstain until marriage. That should be the main advice to the teenagers. Asante, Abraham. And another comment here from Sam Ohindo. In Kenya, this family planning program has taken our children into early sex. Really? Okay. Okore Obonyo. Well, from a point of view, they've got advantages and disadvantages. The problem is the fact that they've been overrated and abused. That's your thought on contraceptives. John, you say teenagers should first be taught about STDs, and contraceptives will not prevent that. It's better to tell them about condoms. Let's be realistic, as they will not abstain. Okay, John, tumekusikia. Moses Barasa, the world is dynamic. Contraceptives should be encouraged to be used by these teens. They know everything at their early age. Thank you, Moses. Another comment from Sparkling. You call yourself, what? These teens are totally aware about the world. They know the outcome of premature sexual contacts, but what they do is ignorance, fueled by pride, arrogance, and the spirit of rebellion. So parents have to instill manners in them by letting them know their boundaries. Kome Junior, you say, I agree on this. Introducing teens to family planning at such a young age will increase immorality, as most of the kids will not take precautions into consideration, thus increasing the spread of STDs. Bernard Mutuku, you say, I advocate for parental responsibility. Thank you very much for that thought. And yes, we'll be back with more in our final leg of the discussion on contraceptives.
It's one platform where everybody has a voice.
If we don't have jobs, if we don't have money, if we're not, if our business...
Hosted by the King of Wit.
Do you know the Bible to that much detail? Ama hizi ni zile tu zinaendanishana na dhambi zenye unajua.
It's basically everybody's show.
Vitamin C ni cassava, shauri ya nguvu. Vitamin D ni dania. Anacha kukula, anaimba. I have decided.
The Wicked Edition with Dr. King Ori and the Guesswork CEO, Kenya Jui.
The Kisumu County Assembly specializes in stimulants, to be specific, concentrated coffee.
Where humor meets sense.
Moses Kuri alinitwanga hapa serious.
Soldiers wanakuanga wameka polisi skill. Mbona nyinyi mkimbiangi mkituona?
The Wicked Edition. Every Friday at 7:30 p.m. only on NTV.
Akili, 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 akili. Let's chase the germs away. Let's chase the germs away by keeping our hands clean. And when you want to sneeze or when you want to cough, do it in your elbow. Let's practice sneezing into your elbow. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Achoo! Again. Achoo! Yay! You did it! Germs, germs, germs. They make us sick. Germs, germs, germs are not our friends. Germs, germs, germs. They make us sick. Germs, germs, germs. Germs, germs, germs are not your friends.
Along came
Do you really think that I enjoy seeing, despite all the years that have passed, that you're still madly in love with my husband? You took him away from me, like you always do. You're living the life that's supposed to be mine. You're absolutely crazy.
You need to understand that nobody wants you here.
I don't know why you hate us so much, madam. You certainly do.
Make my life hell, but if you mess with my daughter, I'll make you regret the day you were born.
Why would you break my heart this way?
And haven't you broken my heart? Along came love. In association with Blue Band Peanut Butter.
Okay, welcome back to Your World this Thursday morning, the 22nd day of October. We are focusing on contraceptives. And my panel this morning is Dr. Nelly Bosire. She is a gynecologist here with me in the studio. Also, just across the room is Nelly Munyasia, Executive Director of the Reproductive Health Network Kenya. And joining us via Zoom is Salim Charo. He's Chair of the Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, Nairobi branch. And so as we enter our final leg of this discussion, let's go to Indonesia first, where they are launching an unprecedented birth control drive with plans to put contraceptives in the hands of 1 million citizens to head off a virus-packed baby boom. Sulashi Reception says, my husband has many days off during the pandemic, so I'm afraid about getting pregnant again. He spends most of the time at home, eat, sleep, not much to do. He has more off days than work days. So, Rahma, a housewife, also says, it's all down to yourself. You have to be able to control yourself, take care of yourself, not to get pregnant again during this pandemic. That's the situation in Indonesia. Now, the world may soon see a global shortage of condoms, one of the world's largest producers says, as businesses in Malaysia struggle to stay open and running amid a nationwide lockdown put in place to stop the spread of the deadly coronavirus.
From the lockdown, for the 10 days of lockdown, we estimated about close to 100 million capacity was wiped out. And then following that, we're having another 2 more weeks of running only at 50%. And even that, we're estimating potentially another 100 million capacity to be also wiped off. I have no doubt that in the next few months, should the situation not improve, there will be a shortage of condoms in the market. In fact, right now, we're already starting to see a cost increase, in terms of manufacturing because, we are paying all our employees in full. And only 50% of workforce are coming. So definitely on the labor cost side, we're starting to see a cost increase. The world will have to look into probably a little bit more, condom probably will get a bit more expensive. I think a lot of things will get more expensive. Carex has basically operations in both Malaysia and Thailand. The good news is that the Thai operation continue with a little bit of disruption because supply chain, some of them were coming from Malaysia. But generally, the Malaysian plants were shut down.
Okay, now, and staying on the subject of impact of COVID-19, let me come to you, Nelly. We spoke about earlier about the forgotten needs that have been kind of pushed in the back burner due to the obviously pressing demands of coronavirus, and that includes sexual reproductive health services and products. What's going to be the impact of this? The fact that we had all these, 7, 8 months of, not paying too much attention to this area?
So we are going to definitely see a rise in the number of unwanted pregnancy, and this is because of the shortage of, for example, contraceptives and family planning. And then access actually to these services is also going to be, difficult. And we know that just while we were visiting our providers, the network providers that we work with, we realized that they were not getting the commodities, the family planning commodities. So this means that we are going to see women who are not able to get their routine refills when it comes to contraceptives, whether whether hormonal or non-hormonal. And we are going to see pregnancies that were unplanned for, pregnancies that were unwanted. And I think 2 months ago we saw fetuses, being at the riverbanks of Nairobi River. This tells us that as a pregnancy, when a girl or a woman has a pregnancy that is unwanted, and they are struggling with what they have to probably tell their parents or what they have to tell probably their spouses, given that probably they had made a decision not to get another baby, then they will look for the all wrong ways to have this pregnancy terminated. So we are going to see a lot of unsafe pregnancy, unsafe termination of pregnancies, and we're going to see women and girls, like you go to Kenyatta Hospital, you get girls that have complications as a result of unsafe abortions. So a lot of backstreet abortions are going to take place, and this is again just because of lack of information in terms of where to access these services.
Okay, thank you. Now, Salim, they say that the first places to start is in the family. Father speaking to son, mother to daughter, and so on, about the reality of family life and sexual reproductive health. It's not an easy conversation to have, especially for a man, to have a sexual conversation with your children.
Yeah, it's true. It's difficult to have such a conversation, but can you think of it this way? You know, when your daughter comes to you and tells you that dad or mom, I am pregnant. You know, it would have been better when you could have initiated this conversation prior, you know, to this problem. So and. That's why we need to find ways on how to initiate such conversations and see how at least we can in stages how we can introduce the topic and keep on going and discussing this topic to our children in general, because if here we are talking of our daughters becoming pregnant out of wedlock, but can you think in cases where you have boys impregnating girls, you know? So it's a cutting across conversation that we need to have as parents, and I think this a conversation that should start very early, you know, as as early as your child starts, differentiating his or her gender, you know, when they say, you know, I have this, and why doesn't so and so have this, you know, that's when you should start this conversation. You know, you should not allow someone to touch you these parts of the body, you know. At least it's something that should continue, you know, and the way we should convey this message, because in most cases we find that we threaten our children. Nikikupata umefanya hivi ama hivi, so they get threatened. So when something happens to this to our children, they will be threatened. They know that it would end up nicely when this reaches my parents. But if we put it in a friendly way, in a friendly manner, at least it will give us an opportunity to have this discussion and conversation with our children. And at least, when we become close to our children, we have this conversation. It will help us also to identify where the ways that they are they are heading to.
Oh, okay, Salim, thank you. Dr. Bosire, now talking about STDs, sexually transmitted diseases, HIV, and so on. And as we saw in the discussion earlier, young people are much more concerned about falling pregnant than catching these other diseases. Why is this? Do they know something that we don't?
Well, I think they answered those questions quite appropriately for themselves, where they said that, look, if you have an infection, it's a private affair. You deal with it on a one-on-one basis with your doctor. But the one thing you cannot hide is a pregnancy. Doesn't matter what you do. This baby will come out, and it will be obvious. So the conversation around STIs it should actually try and be delinked from contraceptives, because these are two separate conversations. And the problem is that every time we keep lumping them together, it then contributes to a lot of other issues that then the message is lost. Okay, so I always say, first of all, we need to understand that we have sexually transmitted infections, which are just a small proportion of genital tract infections. The entire reproductive system can get infections, and not all of them have anything to do with sex. For example, mumps, which is a common childhood disease, actually causes what we call mumpsitis, which is inflammation of the testicles for men and boys. And this actually has a very high likelihood of leading to infertility later in life. So who's having that kind of a conversation? So we need to understand this, and majority of the infections that as practitioners will treat in the hospitals and clinics will be genital tract infections overall. So the STIs are just a special category of genital tract infections which can be passed on from one sexual partner to the other. It's important for them to understand that, to understand how to prevent them. And this is why there's been a lot of emphasis that, look, we started with the A, which is the abstinence. And this ABCD has actually never gone wrong. Where abstinence fails, then let us encourage faithfulness. So we may not want to talk about teenagers, but even once people are over the age of 18, we no longer have the authority to tell them whether to have sex or not. It becomes their moral choice to decide to have sex or not. But at that point, how are we encouraging faithfulness with a partner whose status you know, the partner who you can walk to your doctor with and have conversations around issues of infection, about what contraceptive choices you want to use as a couple and things like that. We're not having these conversations, and the children are really ahead of us. They're very much ahead of us. I mean, I call it the Electric Avenue phenomenon, where we have college children who start partying on Friday. And on Friday to Sunday, she has had 7 different multiple sexual partners. She has popped 2-3 emergency pills every single day, which is absolutely inappropriate use, with a magnification of adverse effects which shouldn't happen in the first place. And this phenomenon is replicating itself in every single town in this country, where we are seeing a mushrooming of tertiary institutions. You have a sleepy little town in Kisii. Come in Kisii University, and all of a sudden there are 6,000 young girls attending college who don't have proper accommodation, so they're living all over this town in funny small houses. Life is very difficult. Parents are only able to afford school fees, and they don't think about where their child is living or what living conditions they're living in while they're trying to attain a tertiary education. What is it leading to? It's leading to a lot of sex for young people, purposely for sustenance. We have to face up to this reality. It is now our reality. And anybody who's being objective will have seen this replicated. First it was Eldoret, we had more university, then we had Kisii, then we had Igeto, Nakuru changed all of a sudden. We now have Kakamega, Masinde Muliro just came in the other day. The town is suddenly mushrooming. What do we expect? It is a phenomenon. We have to appreciate it, and we have to then say, you cannot wait to have sexuality issue discussions with a child who is now 18, 19, 20, independent, living away from home, and able to have sex without worrying about the legal repercussions. Okay. You must start to talk to this child, as I absolutely agree with what Mr. Salim has said, age-appropriate conversations. Right. These age-appropriate conversations are what is really wrapped up in comprehensive sexuality education, a concept that has been really opposed and which we really have to rethink. That, look, whether we like it or not, if you're not giving it, somebody else is. So who should be responsible? Yes, parents must be responsible, but we must admit our parents never even had it from their own parents. They have no training whatsoever. If there's anything that being at home with COVID has taught us, is that parents cannot be teachers. Home learning has been one of the hardest things we have seen, right? Absolutely. And now we want to tell these same parents to start having very difficult conversations with their children, something we never prepared them for. Okay, Dr. Bosire, let me turn to Nelly as we come towards the end of our show. Briefly about power dynamics in sexual reproductive health. The men are responsible for a lot of key decisions that actually affect the female. How do you rebalance that, or how do you draw out the man to be a lot more involved, a lot more consultative, I suppose?
Yeah, so thank you. I think we need to appreciate where we are at as a country and the fact that we cannot wish away our men. I look at a scenario where men are involved in all decision making as much as we feel it is our right as women. And this is because we want to get solutions to some of the problems we have, because if we are not going to involve men, then that means that we are going to see a continuation in the kind of the problems that we've had, especially when it comes to women making some of the decisions, for example, access to contraceptives and all that. So if, as healthcare providers, for example, if we are providing services to women and we know they are struggling with, for example, getting consent from their men, then it is high time that we involve men in all the stages of decision making when it comes to access to services, for example. And this does not necessarily mean that women do not have a right to make a decision, but this is because we want to find a long-lasting decision. Okay. Yeah.
Nelly, thank you. Now, Salim, let me hear your closing thoughts. Are there some useful tips from the Holy Book that can help us in these difficult conversations that we must have?
Oh, thank you. And I think it's important that we start over this conversation. And the most important thing, talking of sexual education, I think is something that we should start first with parents, uh, because so that they may know how to address and to address their children. And talking of religious texts, when it comes to some of these decisions, is that also in Islam it's allowed to perform the withdrawal method, but you cannot do it without the consent of your spouse. As a man, you don't just come up with a decision and say that I'm going to do this without consulting, because we need to discuss with the. So it's not something that we are told that we should make our own decisions as men, but it's something that should be discussed and agreed upon the couple, so that they may proceed. So that's the most important thing I think I should emphasize, because just as you mentioned, it happens that men have the upper hand when it comes to family planning, and that's why it happens that most women don't consult their men or their husbands when it comes to making decision on whether to start taking contraceptives or not. So I think it's
okay,
something that we need to be discussing.
Thank you, Salim. I'm really struggling with your line because it's breaking up, but I think we got the gist of what you're saying. And maybe a quick final thought from you, Dr. Busiri.
Well, I think for me, it is important that we destigmatize the issue of contraceptives. Contraceptives are not the enemy. We have actually far more toxic medications that we have to use, and we do use. So we need to have a more open mind. We need to embrace the fact that contraceptive use is not going to be medically solved. It has a whole social construct around it that we need to deconstruct, and we need to be able to embrace the fact that we have to pay attention to this. We have just very quickly two issues that the older married woman has perennially been made to feel that she's taking contraceptives to stop having children. That notion needs to stop. It is to help her plan the when, the how, and the how many. That is what it's supposed to do, because the moment we keep pumping it that it's just supposed to be for population control and what have you, it's causing a lot of problems, because there are people who are comfortable with 5 children. How do we support them to properly, safely, medically safely have 5 children? There are people who don't want to have children, and that too should be acceptable. Okay. For the younger person, we need to remove the attachment of contraceptives to morality. And the reason is that our social construct, again, is really changing. Whereas the young girl went to school and knew she was supposed to finish school and get married and start having children, a lot of women, marriage and children is no longer a priority. But sexual health means that they will have to have their sexual needs also taken care of, which then means that you cannot moralize this around them. As a healthcare provider, as the government, it is taking note of this, and this is why we are making room for this. The issue that should be contentious is, what do we do with our children? Keep them safe, try as much as possible, keep them away from sexual activity until they are 18. Where all else fails, we still have to have stopgap measures to care for them.
Thank you, Dr. Busiri. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts, as well as Nelly Munyasia for joining us this morning from the Reproductive Health Network Kenya. Thank you so much, Salim Charo, Chair of the Council of Imams and Preachers of Kenya, Nairobi branch. And just before we go, some thoughts from you on our hashtag New Normal, and this is Annie Goodwill Favor. I support you on this. Parents discuss about sex and its repercussion before marriage. Instill sense of responsibility to your children. Have an adolescent, and I'm so scared about her future. You have an adolescent, you say. At the rate at which men stare at her gives me makasiriko. Sorry about that. Okoth, teenage pregnancies won't stop unless something is done. Indeed. And Esther Favor, you say, I'm looking forward to the day men will lower their ego and start using the male contraceptives. So, or is it a burden for women only? Good question. And Christine Nguna, you say, I really wonder whether these women who advocate for contraceptives for girls, they do that, or can do that to their own kids? Ama are women pushing NGO agendas to get paid? Okay. And young Nikki, you say, at this point, religion really won't help, because what is it that we are not taught in class and in our churches? Despite the many sermons, we still end up having early pregnancies. What should really happen is talking to our kids about sexual conversations, because they already know a lot. We cannot keep sweeping this matter under the carpet and blame our teens and youth for what happens next. Okay? Asante sana for your thoughts and comments. Now, tomorrow we have a masterclass in comedy. What does it take to become a comedian? And how does one venture into the art of comedy and perfect their act? Join us and let the experts do the tickling. On behalf of the team here and my guests, thank you so much for joining us. Keep safe and have a good day.
I help women find independence by training them in fish farming. It's tough on my back, joints, and can cause headaches. Panadol Extra relieves multiple types of pain.
If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
As we take personal responsibility and adhere to all government regulations and guidelines in relation to coronavirus, may we remember that God is faithful. He will not allow us to be pressed, crushed, and perplexed by the epidemic to a point of total destruction. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 9 teaches us that we may be hard pressed on every side, but shall not be crushed. We can be persecuted, but shall not be abandoned. We can be struck down, but shall not be destroyed.
Do you want a good life? Declare Psalm 23 verse 6. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It shall be so, and it cannot be otherwise.
To get goodness and love by Vuma, dial star 811 star 923 hash. Skiza na Nation.
Maji mdosi wangu ametupa simu yangu ndani ya maji.
Mdosi wako kwa sawa. Venye Nkirota ameniambia ajui na akimpigia simu ashiki. Hey! Guy!
For the women who deserve more, Moped is now in Kenya and more than 40 countries. With its nylon-free surface, new Moped has unique softness and up to 100% protection. Your skin will love it.
Bank wakasema mwenye ako na loan tuende kwa bank. Mtu vile alikuwa amechukua loan yake kiwango yake akareduciwa. Sasa ingekuwa maisha ni ngumu kabisa. Sasa nimekuwa marafiki na Equity Bank kabisa.
Do your gums hurt? Yeah. Does your toothpaste contain sage, eucalyptus, myrrh, chamomile?
All that in one toothpaste?
Yes, try Colgate Herbal. Colgate Herbal contains nature's best herbs and Colgate's fluoride technology to give you strong teeth and healthy gums.
Ah,
Colgate Herbal. Let's go. Colgate Herbal for strong teeth and healthy gums naturally.
NTV, turning on your world. The following program has been rated GE. It is therefore suitable for general family viewing.
We clapped our hands and stomped our feet. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho. A rig-a-tick-tick and away we go, away we go, away we go. A rig-a-tick-tick and away we go. Hi ho, hi ho, hi ho.
Hi guys! Welcome to Generation 3. My name is Stacey Wawero, and today I promise you more fun and more exploring. To start it off, here are today's highlights.
You say you sabi dance like this?
Two little piece, two little piece.
This is our ninja's fighting stick. And there I have my toilet roll ninja ready to fight.
Morning! Morning!
We're going to have lots of fun. I'm so excited. Here's an awesome video that will hopefully make you laugh and put a big white banana smile on your face. Here's an awesome video. So do you agree with me?
The other type of music which it is peace, love, harmony, and good morals is reggae music.
It's time for Wakilisha, where we showcase our talents and have fun because everyone has a talent. So do you like going to talent shows and winning and having lots of fun? This is your segment. Here's Wakilisha.
Teacher, how are you today? Teacher, how are you today? This is a greeting from your pupil. Teacher, how are you today?
My teacher is not Oliver. My teacher is not Beneva. My teacher is all over. You might know her. I might not. I might know him. You might not. We might know it. We might not. I am talking about the world in real sense. This is not just a word. To me, the world is an award. Some people may find this awkward. Maybe you can catch up with my story onward. When I first set foot on this world, happy birthday, dear Monica. Happy birthday, dear Monica. I knew it was the onset of our journey. I cried out because it was not so funny to live in a world that's so rainy, so sunny. The world became my teacher, and the lessons became so many. So many from my mommy, so many from my daddy, so many from my nanny, and that Mr. Kimani. Oh, my nose got so runny. I'm talking about my father, my mother. I'm talking about my brother, my sister. I'm talking about my preacher, my neighbor. I'm talking about my school teacher. Mama, mother, how are you today? Mother, how are you today? This is a greeting from your daughter. Mother, how are you today? Thank you for your lessons. It feels good to belong. It took so long for you to correct those my wrongs. And now I have that song that all can sing along. I'm talking about my mother, my first teacher. Papa! Father, how are you today? Father, how are you today? This is a greeting from your daughter. Father, how are you today? Oh, they call you Baba Baba Monica. They call you Sam. I call you my teacher. You taught me responsibility. You taught me agility. That people work for money, but work is not like honey. Your lessons are witty, but I get them nitty-gritty. But the work gets so hard, but the earn gets so yummy. I'm talking about my father, my greatest teacher. My brother, my sister, my mother, my father, my preacher, my neighbor. Respect. We are all teachers. Be My Teacher by Anthony Karanja.
It's time for Vibe Corner, where we get to interact with you through opinion question, tongue twisters, and riddles. To start it off, here's an opinion question.
My favorite sport is swimming because I love swimming.
My favorite sport is tennis because I have a lot of fun playing.
My favorite sport is skating because my brother likes it.
My favorite sport is hockey because my mom is a national. I want to become a national too. My favorite sport is basketball because I have fun when I play it.
It's time for a tongue twister, where we get to learn new words and have fun while doing it. Here's today's tongue twister.
Two little peas, two little peas, two little peas.
Two little peas, two little peas, two little peas, two little peas.
Two little peas, two little peas, two little peas, two little peas.
Two little peas, two little peas, two little peas, two little peas.
Two little peas, two little peas, two little peas. Two little peas, two little peas, two little peas.
Riddles help you to think deeply and to learn new things. Here's today's riddle.
Shadow. A shadow is if the sun shines, there is a black thing that is on your side. That one is the shadow.
Shadow because if you stand, there is a thing which is down there.
A shadow because when the sun is up, the shadow is behind you, but when the sun is facing forward, the shadow is forward.
A shadow because when there is light or when there is sun, wherever you go or wherever you stand, it always follows you.
The answer to the riddle is at the bottom of your screen. If you got it right, yay! If you didn't, don't worry, because it's time to have fun.
Wasiwasi. Nasikia wewe ni mkubwa mpaka huwezi kaa chini.
Wasiwasi. Nasikia siku moja chicha wenye ashakwambia ushaenda home, alafu tena chicha wenye ulipatiwa homework, ukaenda kwa babako akakuuliza 1+1, akasema toka hapa, auoni nasoma gazeti. Wasiwasi. Nasikia siku moja mlinidanganya ati mko na TV. Nikakuja kwenyu. Sasa mlikonga na shosho wenu. Ukamwambia, sasa ndaka uingie kwa box shosho. Sasa nikakuja kwenyu, sasa mnakula lunch. Sasa mamako alipika chapati. Sasa shosho yako alikuanga ana act. Alikuanga sasa anasema news kwa NTV, akaanza kusema, sasa senu unakula chapati, akaanza kusema, wewe mnibakishie chapati, wewe mnibakishie chapati.
Know Your World is about learning about our universe and learning new things. I've gone to Poland and I've been to a real-life castle, and it was so much fun, like those castles in fairy tales. Here's Know Your World.
Hello! How are you today? I'm going to tell you a story, a true story, and a very beautiful one too. Have you ever heard of the Taj Mahal? Well, a long time ago, in the year 1607, a prince fell in love with a girl. The two were not allowed to marry right away, as they were both young. The prince was also expected to marry another woman. He did, but then he also eventually married the love of his life, who he had met when she was only 15 years old. He gave her the nickname Mumtaz Mahal, which means chosen one of the palace. Sadly, Mumtaz died during childbirth, and the prince, now an emperor, was so heartbroken. To honor her, he decided to build an item of beauty as her final resting place. This was the Taj Mahal. Here are some interesting facts about this beautiful building that is now a tourist attraction. The name Taj Mahal means crown of palaces. It was built by 22,000 laborers, painters, stone cutters, and embroidery artists. The materials that were used to build the Taj Mahal were transported to the construction site by, guess what, 1,000 elephants. This work of art and architectural genius took 17 years to complete. The mausoleum takes on different colors at different times of the day. It takes a pinkish hue in the morning, milky white in the evening, and golden at night when illuminated by the moonlight. This beautiful building attracts more than 1 million tourists every year. Whoa, what a beautiful fairy tale story, but a sad one too, especially because it is actually true. I hope to visit the Taj Mahal one day and walk in the huge, glorious mausoleum. I hope you'll come with me. Bye for now.
Environment is everything around us, and we should help by conserving trees and planting more trees so that they can give us shelter, air, and lots of other stuff. Here's environment courtesy of Junior Spot.
Good morning. Do you love birds? I do. very, very much, which is why I truly admire the pupils of Little Friends Academy in Naivasha. These wonderful pupils formed a wildlife club aimed at feeding birds and thus conserving nature. This only began at the beginning of this year, where the students, with the help from their teachers, began creating a friendly space for birds. How did they do this? First, they made several troughs and placed them in strategic places around the school compound. After they are done with their meals, the pupils collect the leftovers and place them on the troughs. They also pour water for the birds to drink. It has only been 4 months since the school's club began, but already their hard work and determination is paying off. There are several species of birds that fly around the school compound, such as the egrets, mockingbirds, sparrows, skylarks, and doves. Other species also include little quackers, common quails, woodpeckers, and thrush, among many more. The pupils are not only being helpful to the birds, but they themselves thoroughly enjoy playing their part in conservation. Feeding the birds helps them survive, and it's also a lot of fun. I find the whole experience fulfilling, says Stacy Gathoni, a Standard 7 pupil. This is not the only vision of the club. They have even bigger plans for the future. The club has plans to start a tree planting project. I bet the birds will perch there, making the school even more beautiful. What environment conservation steps has your school taken? Have you been a part of it? Well, perhaps your school could also start the same project, and you could suggest it to them and help in setting up the club. Remember, everybody's effort helps.
Do you like making crafts? It's so much fun. Let's help Kavi on phonology make a simple craft.
Hi children, and welcome to Phonology. Today we're going to be making a toilet roll ninja. Are you ready? For this craft you will need a toilet roll, a balloon, a long one, okay, a small straw. I had a straw and I cut it in half, so about that big, and a black piece of paper and a marker. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is cut out 2 strips of paper, a thick strip and a thin strip. So there is my thick strip, and it's a bit too thick, so I'm going to make it a bit smaller. All right, that's good. Next, I'm going to take my glue stick and I am going to put some glue on this paper and just roll the toilet roll and make sure it's right at the edge of my toilet roll, and I'm just going to roll it onto the paper which I have put the glue on. Okay, and just press as you do so and make sure it's all on the same level. Okay, next I am going to put a thin strip, which is about that big. So I'm just going to put the glue on the toilet roll. All right, and I'm going to stick it around. I'm going to cut off the excess piece and just stick that part. All right, cool. So now we should have something that looks like that. The next thing I'm going to do is turn it and make sure all of the back lines are in the same place. And I'm going to draw in my eyes of my ninja. So just 2 dots will do, because you can only see a ninja's eyes. Okay, and some really funky brows. Okay, almost angry brows. it should look something like that. Next, I am going to cut a very skinny piece of black paper. Okay, and I am going to roll it really thin. You can even fold it if you like. Really, really, really thin. And I want it to be thin enough to fit into my straw. Okay, so let's see. And if it's not thin enough, you can just fold it again. Push it into the straw. And this is just to make the straw darker. Going to do one end and cut it. Then we're going to do the other end. So we have a space in the middle. Alright. So it should look something like that. And this is our ninja's fighting stick. So I am going to take my balloon. Okay. And I'm going to tie it as the ninja's belt just across the toilet roll. Okay, because a ninja always comes prepared with his stick or her stick. Okay. Going to tie a knot. Really tight as I can. Okay. Then I'm going to cut off the edges of my balloon. All right. I'm going to make sure the belt is straight. And there I have my toilet roll ninja ready to fight. So I hope you enjoyed making this ninja with me. We'll see you next time when we're going to be making a dog puppet. See you next time. Bye.
It's time for a short break, but don't be sad because we'll be back with more fun and more laughter. But before we go, here's a G3 jam.
See you want to dance, master me. Ha, only cover for me. Open up or give you answer me. The Kwandani phone at Chisofa me, Hana Balumizu, Hana Chikona, me, Makanane, Ukon, Budustona, me, Hana, Aticha Hanchabuka, wanna be easy. Amara Painte, in a Baku, when the ticket she Amara Buruga, Waidi, Chewata, Okwa to Kudu Gaga. Only go to Mumoyabonoso, Omano Mapotana, say you want dance, Sabi, or she will say, Sabi dance, Sabi.
Baby, you want to dance, Sabi?
You want to dance, Sabi?
You say you Sabi dance like me? Baby, you want to dance, Sabi?
You want to dance, Sabi?
You say you Sabi dance like me? Dance like me? Oh, yeah, get it. Over Sabi? Oh, yeah, get it. Dance like me? Oh, yeah, get it. Over Sabi? Oh, yeah, get it. Dance like me? Dance like me? 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. Packy, 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 packy. You got it, got it, got it, got it. When you see me on the scene, you should know there is a master. I'm actually in the building, no ballet for the master. Mr. DJ, put this song on replay. I want boys on display, display, replay. Baby, you want to dance, Sabi?
You want to dance, Sabi?
You say you Sabi dance like me? Baby, you want to dance, Sabi?
You want to dance, Sabi?
You say you Sabi dance like me? You say you Sabi dance. Oh, yeah, get it. Over Sabi? Oh, yeah, get it. Dance like me? Oh, yeah, get it. Over Sabi? Oh, yeah, get it. Dance like me?
With the Stay Soft refill, saving money is as easy